let's get straight into it, why not? And let's see what it's all about. I've played this game, I've done it to completion, although not 100% completion because I'm not crazy. We'll get into why that is in just a second. But this is the fourth mainline Crash Bandicoot game. Of course, there are actually other Crash Bandicoot games out there. Let's not talk about those though. What did I think of this game in a nutshell? I think this game is good. I think at times there are things that are preventing it from being great. So we'll get into that in just a bit. But all of the negatives I have about this game are outweighed by the positives, and the big positive is simply that the game is so much fun, and it's addictive, and it's fast-paced and enjoyable. So this is essentially exactly what you would expect from a Crash Bandicoot game. It's the classic Crash Bandicoot mechanics and gameplay style. It's 2D platforming mixed in with 3D elements.
So
You're going left and right, forward and backwards, doing loads of jumps,
now my brother
trying to
Akano
collect
is
all the
around here
crates.
somewhere.
There are a lot of time-based challenges and puzzles in there as well. It's classic Crash Bandicoot. There are a few little things here and there which mix things up, so they've introduced a bunch of masks now that give you extra powers and abilities, such as slowing down time or turning the world upside down and changing gravity and unlimited spin and kind of like a Beyblade kind of thing. They add some variety in, but otherwise that's kind of the only new actual gameplay elements in this game. You're going to see one of these new masks now, so you can see I can turn certain elements of the environments on and certain elements of the environments off. So yeah, this is the gameplay, the core gameplay, collecting the crates, getting through the levels. It's all time-based stuff. Very classic Crash Bandicoot. To get into some of the negatives though, the big negative is the difficulty of this game. This is a really tough game at times, and the difficulty only amps up towards the end of the game. So this is supposed to be a children's game. The problem though is that, in my opinion, the difficulty amps up way too high for younger audiences. So if you are a younger audience, I don't think you're going to get to the end of this game, and you're certainly not going to be able to play the game the way that it's kind of intended, where the whole point is to collect all the crates and the various other collectibles. That's off the table basically if you're a younger gamer or a less experienced gamer. But speaking of the collectibles, there are tons of them. Obviously you've got the crates, you've got the gems, you get collectibles, you get a gem for getting through a level with 3 lives or less. You get a gem for collecting all the crates. Well, actually you get a gem for a certain percentage of crates. Obviously you get all of them if you get all the crates. But there's also a hidden gem on every level, and there's a time challenge ones, and you unlock some others later. This is a collector's paradise basically. If you like to go through the game and unlock everything and get all the collectibles, you're going to love this game because there's tons of that stuff. And it really gives you an incentive to play certain parts of the game again. So for example, I finished the game right now, I'm playing this level here. I'm fairly certain I've probably got some stuff left to discover and unlock in this level. But just to get back to the difficulty while I remember, the difficulty does gradually increase. I would say it starts off actually alright towards the early goings of the game, but then about halfway through it does get hard, and then I would say about 3/4 of the way through it gets really hard, to the point where it stops being hard because you aren't good at the game, and it starts being hard because the game is being harsh and punishing. It's deliberately trying to catch you out, it's deliberately trying to make you struggle. And it becomes frustrating and annoying to the point where eventually, the more I was getting through this game, the less I liked the game. And I do like this game, but it's a problem when the game is almost like challenging you to not want to like it or to not get through it. But again, just to go back to the collectibles, I'm going to jump all over the place here in this review. The game does a good job at letting you know what you have or haven't done or got. So I know, for example, heading into a level, whether I've found certain collectibles or not. I know if I've completed a level 100%. So if I have completed a level 100%, I know not to do that level again. And it's great that the game monitors all that and makes it very clear what is left to do. And I like that a lot. Again, it's just really good at letting you know whereabouts you are in the game, what you want to do in the game, what needs to be done in the game. And I like that. This is some of the new content here, the sliding mechanics. These are fun, they add some variety to certain levels. They are usually in small little chunks like this, so this is not going to be the full level. There are other elements here and there which add certain variety to the levels like this. So for example, there are now new playable characters. At any point you can play as Crash or Coco, but you can also play as Neocortex and Dingodile. Those characters, Neo and Dingodile, and there's also Tonma, they have very similar mechanics to Crash and Coco, but they have new items that are personalized to them. So Tonma's levels are much more action orientated. When she spins, she's actually doing like a kick, and it's almost like being in an action movie, the stuff that you see her doing. Neocortex has a ray gun which can turn enemies into platforms which you can jump on or bounce off of. Dingodile has like a vacuum cannon gun which can suck in large amounts of the environment, so if there's a bunch of crates hanging around you can suck them all in. It makes it for really quick absorption of the crates. But they've also got other things like Neocortex can't double jump, Dingodile can't double jump either, but he can use the cannon to make him float for a little bit. Again, nothing groundbreaking or truly like amazing or unique, but it does add some variety. It does help make sure that you're not exactly doing the same thing over and over again. But because you've got all these new characters, and you've got the normal characters like Crash and Coco, as well as all the boss fights and all the side missions and tons of unlockable side missions as well. The Neo and Dingo's missions are separate from the main campaign. They are optional missions you can do. You've also got unlockable levels which explore Crash Bandicoot's origins. There's a lot of content in here, perhaps too much I would say. And at the same time, while there are too many levels, I think a lot of the levels are too long, particularly towards the end of the game, where you do get levels which are mixing in the traditional Crash Bandicoot gameplay with some of the newer content, like the on-rail sections or riding a polar bear and stuff. They just seem to go on and on and on. Luckily though, the checkpoint system, which has been revamped for this game, is good. It's much better. If you're struggling in a certain area, then all of a sudden you'll end up seeing the checkpoint pop up, and it's very forgiving that way on. But I think it has to be because of how challenging it is. But there are also boss fights. There's about 4 or 5 boss fights in the whole game. These are very classic Crash Bandicoot boss fights in that they feel like they're from the older games. They don't feel all that modern, or they're pretty just generic, I want to say. They basically have you in the foreground with the boss in the background. The boss sends off a wave of an attack of sorts. You've then got to avoid that attack, and once you avoided the sequence of attacks, once you figured out the pattern, you can then send an attack back to the boss. Very traditional, very standard stuff, nothing groundbreaking, nothing special, I would say, about the boss fights, and they're very straightforward and very simple, especially in comparison to other parts of the game. But the checkpoint system actually reminds me a bit of Celeste, games like that, where once you die, you come back really quick. The load times are pretty slim. You've seen me die a few times here already if you're paying attention. So there, I've just died there, and you basically just got to watch the death animation, and there you go, you're back in the game. It's very quick, and I'm playing this on a PS4 Pro. Who knows what that would be like on a PS5. But it does encourage you to keep playing, it does encourage you to keep going back and back. The fact that it is so quick that it keeps you in the game, keeps you playing. It's really well done and quite smart. But I've talked about the on-rail sections. I briefly mentioned how you've got like the polar bear sections, which are returning from the previous Crash Bandicoot games. They are not a welcome return. They were often the worst parts of the past Crash Bandicoot games, and they are still the worst parts of this Crash Bandicoot game. In that you essentially jump on a polar bear and hey presto, there you go. It's putting the game out of your control. All you can do there is really veer into the right direction, and it's tough because you're sliding around, you're trying to keep control of things, and it's just annoying when so much of this game is about having precise control and accuracy over what you're doing, only to then have it taken away from you. Why would you do that? It's a weird decision to make, and it means that it takes the failure of messing up a level out of your hands, and it makes it seem like the level is basically screwing you over, and it's a pain in the backside. So I'll tell you what, I'm going to show you some of Toma to show you how her levels differentiate from Crash a little bit. But that's basically the gameplay. It's classic Crash Bandicoot gameplay that you know from previous games, with a few little additions here and there, which I'm about to show you one of. It's very fun, very addictive, but the challenge and the difficulty, especially towards the back end of the game, takes away some of the fun, and it actually makes it more frustrating than anything else. Especially when it's not a case of you need to get good at this game, when it actually comes across as the game is deliberately trying to just punish you. But there are other things going on in this game as well. There's the story. The story is very straightforward. There's not a huge amount of it. Basically, certain levels as you get into it have like a cutscene which establishes what's going on, with little lines of dialogue here and there.
This place rules.
There's stuff like this where the characters do talk, and you see a lot of environmental storytelling. The environmental storytelling in this game is brilliant, really well done. So every environment has like a story to tell if you care to look at it, if you care to pay attention. So Toma here, she has like a grapple hook like that, which you can use to get around the environment. You see she's got much more action-orientated stuff rather than a spin. It's like being in like an animated action movie. You can use the grapple hook to reach out and get certain IDs. I'm trying to remember how to do that right now. Maybe I'm just messing up. Yeah, like that. So it does add some variety, it does add a extra little quirk to her gameplay sections, which set her apart from Crash and Bandicoot. But again, back to the story. There's not a lot of it. The environmental storytelling is great. The story does have some humorous moments. It will appeal to younger audiences. It feels like it's from like an animated movie. There are nods and little nudge, wink, wink moments at previous Crash games, like the fact that they've faced Neo Cortex before, but hey, you don't want to mention that. Ultimately, the story does the job. It is enjoyable. It's just not. You're not going to be playing this game for the story, basically. Graphically, again, playing this on a PS4 Pro, I don't know what the resolution is. I think it might be like checkerboard 4K upscale or something. I could be wrong about that. It's definitely not in HDR, but that doesn't matter. I think watching this in standard definition, it's very bright, it's very colourful, it looks like some sort of animated movie, but it's not like the Mario or Ratchet and Clank kind of style of artwork. The artwork has like a bit of an edge to it. It's got a different look to it that sets it apart from those. It's not like a Pixar film in video game form. It's got its own thing going on. And the character designs carry this over as well. As a lot of the character designs, particularly the villainous characters, have like a sharp edge and style to them, which does separate them from other like animated style video game characters. And the final things I want to talk about now are sound. So the sound is great. There's a great score, great music, great sound effects. The sounds that certain characters make, like the masks when you pick them up, are really quirky and adds a lot of charm and character to things. The music, because you're dying so often, you're going to be hearing the music a lot, but I never really felt like it was repetitive. It never got annoying. I think the music's really quite good, to be honest, and it just blends into the environment again. So that's a great thing. Great music, great scoring. Can't really complain that way on it. And yeah, that's Crash Bandicoot. I like this game quite a bit. I think it's a load of fun. It reminds me a lot of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, especially when you get into like the map section and the way that it monitors your progression. The dull colour and the use of comedy is very reminiscent of that. But this is, if you want to compare it to certain platformers like Donkey Kong Country or like the Mario games, this is definitely more challenging than them, particularly towards the back end of the game. Donkey Kong Country does have its challenging moments. This really does beat it out though. And that really is probably how tough and challenging this game is a detriment to the game, virtually. But yeah, that's my review of Crash Bandicoot 4. I like it. I didn't love it. I think it's a really good step in the next direction. If they're going to do another Crash Bandicoot game, which I imagine they will because this game done really well, it's very popular and for good reason, then hopefully they can actually expand on this a bit more. Maybe they can branch out and do something a little different with the mechanics and the gameplay of it. And as you can see, I'm not very good at this game, but that's mainly because I'm focusing on this review, trying to remember things to say and do. I assure you, if I wasn't so focused on what's going on, what I'm trying to say, I would be a little bit better. But yeah, I'm Graham Burton. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_GrahamBurton if you want. But most importantly, subscribe to my channel to get more content like this. The more subscribers I get, the more content like this I can make. Do you like my reviews like this? Do you want to see more video game reviews like this? Do you want to see more gameplay streams like this? Let me know in the comments and feedback down below. I would like to do this if given the time and if it's something people actually want to see. Until next time though, thanks for watching.